Sometimes your wife is just a... Yeah, I'm not going to say it. We have to wait. It's YouTube. It's Mid's Watch. We're coming near the end. I think this is like one of the second to last episodes, somewhere around there. Anyways, this one, old one, it's just the go to the bar for me test. It's interesting because like sometimes it's guys don't know how to assert themselves. They have low value. Sometimes the wife is absolutely ridiculous. So in this case, it's the go to the bar for me shit test. Not a biggie, but one Friday, the old lady pulled out one of her favorite shit test put downs, and I thought I would see like how do I process this? We're playing on a quiz night with a team of other couples, and the old lady finishes her drink and chirps up with, "Right, boy, seeing as you're not coming up with any answers, go make yourself useful, go to the bar and bring me a drink." I looked at her, I smiled, and shook my head in a that's not happening kind of way. Now I could have said, "Oh, but I'm coming up with answers. I got one anagram and about this thing," or I could have said, "Don't be such a bitch. Ask me nicely and I might." But ultimately, I knew all of that was a waste of time, so I just said no. I could see it made the atmosphere very awkward in our social group with no one knowing what to say for about 20 seconds. And then she got up and went to the bar and grabbed her drink. Nothing further said. She plays this card all the time in public. I used to think the chivalrous thing to do was to go get her a drink, the man's job, and these days, I think she's just fucking with me. Anyways, it's a regular one for me. Like, what am I doing here? And Jack Ten of Hearts chimes in with a pretty clear breakdown of this one. So there's two issues here. One is marital expectations. If it's raining and we're going somewhere with the kids, my wife will expect me to drop her and the kids off at the theater while I park and run in, that way they don't get the rain. But she always asks, even if the expectation is there. I'm happy to do it because she does things I ask, even though the expectation is there. Can you drop us off here so we don't have to get in the rain? Always gets a yes because, for example, the "can you make me a snack" will always get a yes from her. The subtlety here is that these are always spoken as favors, which by definition is asking somebody for something and giving nothing in return. Asking, "Can you do me a favor?" is saying, "Are you willing to do something that clearly benefits me more than you because you like me and I'm shown I'm willing to do things that clearly benefit you more than me?" Healthy friendships, healthy relationships all have this good dynamic here, not because they are kind enough to do each other favors, but because they have the same definition of favors. For example, sex. Not a favor. My wife doesn't want to have sex that night. Cool. No sex then. Fuck it. If I'm going to let her associate sex with something that she's only doing out of some misguided attempt to make me happy, I have no interest in that kind of sex. Which is funny because he agrees with Kat on this even though they hate each other, but long story. So if you come here with a long period of entitled whining to your wife about sex, this probably explains her aversion to you over time. It's like asking her to give you a ride to the airport every week. Does she want to do that? No. She saw sex with you as a favor, something she was doing out of altruism, and then became resentful when you wouldn't shut the fuck up about how many few airport rides she's giving you. Any wonder why she has no interest in taking a trip now? Sex aside, if your wife expects chivalry in the vein of traditional marital values, then I would say any responses are dependent on whether she's holding herself to the same standard. Not a good combination if she's an entitled modern woman who thinks it's sexist for a man to even suggest his wife slap some cold cuts in between bread on her behalf, but expects him to be a courteous gentleman. Put that aside, as far as the other issue, it's been well addressed, but I thought I'd chirp in on a few results. I think your problem here is how to handle the specific situation, in that your wife has a tendency to say some shitty things among friends and mixed company more often than is ideal, aka more than 0 times.
From the author and content creator that brought you the heartfelt, the F trophies for clout, the 6-foot-tall Tate, and the not funniest member of Rule 0, Volume 2, Dread.
So here's what you do. Savor that awkwardness. I say don't even shake your head next time. Just stare neutrally for those awkward 10 seconds. To an outside observer, you want them thinking this: well, he heard what she said, but how's he going to react? I really have no idea. It is awkward. Your wife said something really shitty in mixed company, and it made things really awkward, not just for you, but for everybody. She said something shitty, and everybody feels awkward. She knows it, and it's probably why she did this. She couldn't stand the awkwardness, and she correctly assumed everybody was thinking, geez, that was mean-spirited and not even witty, because that's really the rational response to somebody emasculating their spouse in public. Now, there's a gray area between teasing and emasculating, and thus amusing and awkward. Some people can navigate this well, usually in proportion to how humorless their formative years were. If your wife is someone who used to trade jokes and barbs with her family, especially her dad, she'll probably have a keen sense of what's playful teasing and what's just being a bitch at your expense. And if your cold British wife has cold British parents, not surprising that she sucks at this. So the way you kill this behavior is to savor the awkwardness. Think about a baseball bat or a baseball batter who drives away from a pitch thrown way too inside and almost hits him. He almost gets up, dusts himself off, glares at the pitcher. That glare says, you aren't skilled enough to throw inside pitches with the precision you need, so you should probably stop doing that because someone will get hurt, and it may not just be me. The pitcher doesn't fall over himself apologizing, he probably just stares back, but what happens? The catcher calls for an outside pitch, and the pitcher's more than willing to throw it because he knows the batter is right. He effectively goes to the bar and gets a drink for your wife, or the way your wife does. So you're not playing baseball, so it's not an apples to apples analogy, but you get the idea. Don't glare, just look at her neutrally, let the awkward moment last, then with the slightest smirk or all the amused mastery you can muster, just say, you want to try that again? And if she rephases what she says in a much less shitty way, then let her. And everybody else you're with, everybody gets off the hook of this awkward moment. Oh yeah, sure. If she sticks to her guns or is completely clueless, then just think, this other response is perfect. Withdrawal from the group, and that just forces her to stew even longer in that awkward moment. Because here's the secret. Nobody wants to be that guy who made a joke that went too far, and that goes for women too. And they're even more keenly perceptive about these awkward moments because this kind of covert communication is how they normally communicate anyway. It probably won't be long before your wife realizes that these inside pitches do get someone hurt, and surprisingly enough, it's not actually you. So, I like this one. It's not a broad category. It's more of a specific thing, but it's these little social cues. Ian Ironwood does a little bit of them when he talks about the male and female social matrices. But sometimes the case, if just the woman being a bitch like that, is to just let her have her social consequences. And yeah, because nothing goes right. Like if you start just yelling if your wife acts like a bitch to you in public and you just start yelling at her, slamming the table, people now get freaked out because you're some angry, violent man. Never works out well. If you don't believe me, how many of you guys have been single, went to a bar, some girl starts fucking freaking out, throwing her drink at you or whatever, and then the bouncers look over at you like you're supposed to start some shit. All of a sudden, just cold cocking the girl does not end well for you. Now everybody has an excuse to treat you as the bad guy. It's what's that saying they used to use? Where you keep beating the dog until he bites you, then you have an excuse to put the dog down. That's the female strategy here. Alternatively, it's actually happened to me before. I remember that. Some girl, I remember what she did. She threw a drink at me or something. The bouncer started looking at me. And I just stand there and I'm staring at him. I'm staring at her. And I'm like, and I'm pointing at her. I'm like, are you going to do your fucking job? Bouncer kind of snapped out of it, realized, oh, this guy's not some alpha male trying to fight me. And he kicked the girl out of the bar. So sometimes it really is just a case of learning to read the room and playing social cues and understand there's a bit of a dance there. So I hope if you're not good at this, or if you are good at this and you wanted some ideas, that this little example can help you. Because there's thousands of these. And that's the problem, is you cannot make like an example for every time this happens. There's an unfathomable amount of little social cues like this. And ultimately, you just have to learn how to read the room and play it almost intuitively. You have to learn through practice. So if you can get there, get there. And if not, sucks being autistic.